And so when you start looking at the copy feature, I just want to just give you some ideas of other things that you might want to copy if you're not so inclined to think about that. So what types of things do I copy? First of all, when you're copying something, especially when you're dealing with the AO scanner, you have to look in the form or in the realm of homeopathics, meaning what you're doing is you're copying the essence of something, you're copying the frequency of something. It is not the same thing as giving that thing to a person. It is the same thing as giving the essence of that frequency to the person. So theoretically, you can copy something that is toxic, and you're not going to give this to the person and have toxic outcomes or toxic reactions. One of the most common homeopathics that I use for skin issues is sulfur. And sulfur is something that is overwhelmingly toxic, right? But when you just take the essence of it in its toxicity, sulfur can calm down inflammation. It can do that physically. I had a compound ointment that a dermatologist made for me when I um, screwed up my own health and had some lots of inflammation on my skin. And the main portion of the compound was actual sulfur. Now, that's got to be doing something to me to put it on my skin, but it definitely helped to calm down the inflammation. It smelled terrible, but it calmed down the inflammation. And I was able to switch over after I learned about homeopathy to the homeopathic version of sulfur in order to make that happen. So, what is it doing? When you're dealing with homeopathy, you're dealing with educating the body to the frequency of something. Usually, when you are having a reaction to something, let's say you're having an allergy reaction and the pollen in your area is really, really bad. Well, pollen is everywhere, and your body is reacting to the pollen. You're having a system happening in your inside of your blood where it overreacts to what is seen as an invader. Well, if if it had access to the information of what it was, it wouldn't have to overreact because it would already know the energy that it needed in order to defeat it or to make it not a strong invader. The reason why the body tends to overreact is because it does not have the education on the thing that it's fighting. So I'm really oversimplifying this, but it sends all of its soldiers to do a job because it doesn't know which soldier that it needs. It would be like if an alien force came from another planet and we didn't know anything about it and descended on the United States. For those of you who live in the United States, we probably would call up the local police and the military from the Army, the Navy, Air Force, and Marines. We wouldn't know what we were dealing with, and because we don't know what we're dealing with, all hands have to be on deck in order to pull from every source. And that is a simplified version of what happens when you have an autoimmunity situation or when you have a situation where your body is reacting very strongly to something, whether that be a sensitivity or an allergy or at any point like that. So giving the body the information in advance helps to lower what happens when it encounters that because it already knows the essence of what it's dealing with. So going back to the analogy on pollen, if you were to go and take some pollen from your local area, and I do this in practice, and you put it on the copy portion, and then, and I'm going to demonstrate this in a second, or I'm going to pull it up in the scanner, I should say. And then on the imprint portion, you put something there, whether it be a glass of water, whether it be pellets, a tincture bottle, a ring, a stone, one of your bracelets, or one of your Solex rings that you're putting on there. What you're doing is you're channeling the energy from one spot to another, and then whether you drink that water, put the pellet underneath your tongue, take the tincture, wear the jewelry, you are putting that particular frequency in your field. And the goal is that it will come into contact with these things. And the goal and the hope is that it already knows how to react so then it doesn't overreact. So, like, what types of things could you put there? Now, For those of you who might be taking supplements and your supplements are not necessarily giving you the results that you want, it could be that your body is not assimilating the supplements properly. So very often when I have a client that, well, I don't really have this situation because of the supplements that I use, but when I used to have this situation, I would take the supplements and I would ask, yeah, I would have them bring all their supplements and I would put it inside of a little glass vial or a shot glass. And I would copy the supplements over into sugar pellets or a tincture bottle. And I would ask them to do this 3 or 4 times a day underneath their tongue. And what was I doing? I was allowing the client to educate their system on these supplements so that their body would more easily assimilate these supplements and not have a reaction. Now, theoretically, you could do the same thing with medication. I need to be clear. I am not saying to use this in place of your medication. What I'm saying is, if you're taking medication that is causing you problems, perhaps educating the body on the frequency of that medication while still taking that medication could lessen the reaction to that medication. It's all about information. Many of you have foods that you are sensitive to. Taking a little bit of that food, really, I mean, and you don't have to go crazy. Let's just say you are sensitive to peas. You can take literally 1 pea. That's all you need. From a frequency standpoint, if you put 20 peas and 1 pea, the frequency of the 20 and the 1 is exactly the same. So you don't need to go crazy. You could take 1, you could take 2, you could take 3, but you're not making a stronger frequency because you have 1, 2, or 3, is what I'm saying. Copy that. Now, sometimes, everybody in this class has access to the AO scanner, so you might have food sensitivities that are constantly coming up. Sometimes you have groups of foods, and sometimes you have specific foods. Well, this goes right back to what we've been talking about as far as intention goes. So in the in portion, you could write out the foods or the groups of foods, whether it be vegetables, grains, legumes, or specifically. Write that out with intention. Place it in the in on the well. I personally like to use shot glasses. It's just my thing. So I put things in a shot glass. Place that on the in, and then on the out, you are going to imprint that frequency into whatever it is that you are imprinting: jewelry, water, pellets, etc. Um, Also, viruses and bacteria tend to come up a lot on the scans. And if you're dealing with that, you can utilize this same concept. Information. It's just information. And we're educating or giving information to our system so that when our system comes into the reality of these things, hopefully it doesn't react. Now, sometimes you might have viruses or bacteria that come up that's not even in your area, right? And sometimes there's a few things places we can go with that. Sometimes it's because you're dealing with the closest frequency match to the thing that might be bothering you, and so that's the reason it's not resonating properly. And secondly, it could just mean that if you came into contact with it, your body would not be able to deal with it. Educating your body on all of these things in advance will help you. And that's your saving grace. When you see the frequency of something that is not manifesting, you can start writing those things down. Intention is everything. Making frequency copies and educating your system so that you're strengthening your immune system so that when you come into contact with these things, they have less of a damage to your system, or your system already recognizes it and you're not prone to overreacting to it internally. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, let's just look over here at our scanner. And I'm going to go down here to Cephi. And when I get to Cephi, I'm just going right here to imprint. I'm going to click on imprint. And you'll see that now it says copy from, imprint to. It says that right there in bold letters. So I would put my shot glass with either the actual substance or the written words on the copy from. and then I would put whatever I'm going to be imprinting here on the imprint to. When I have them there, just press start. And then when it's done, take it off and consume where, however it is you're going to do this. But the goal here, and I'll say this one last time, the goal here is to educate your system so that these things will have less of an effect. And this copy and imprint tool in the AO scanner is something that almost no one has access to. So here's a new way for you to use that. All right. So let's begin our class. Why don't we? Anybody who has any questions, there's a couple of ways to ask your question. You can raise your hand.
There you go.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I appreciate all of this.
Absolutely.
This is an area that is quite new to me. So,
Okay. Oh, the frequency
yes,
in general?
no, the imprinting and
Okay.
the this use of it.
Okay.
But I understood your discussion about the sulfur and that it's no longer going to affect in that toxic manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to make sure I'm understanding and following this correctly. So, for instance, I have been told to not take ibuprofen or
Mm-hmm.
those types, the NSAIDs. So, because of potential impairment that I have, or the actual impairment I have in the kidney function. Um, so, I is that the same idea carries forward that if I imprinted that into, say, pellets and then consume the water, am I getting the frequency that the benefit from an ibuprofen, which works better than, say, aspirin, but not impairing my kidney function further?
It will not impair your kidney function further, and it would be a good test to see whether or not you experience some benefit from that. Now, that's
Hmm.
not quite what I was saying. That's a different concept, but even in the concept, it's done basically the same way.
Okay.
Um, and so taking an ibuprofen and making a genetic, I mean, not a genetic, a frequency copy of that, and then bringing it in for the purpose of dealing with pain would be a great experiment, and it would be an experiment that you could utilize that would have no impact on your kidneys.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And again, this is I'm glad that you raised that point because I wasn't even going in that direction, but what you are speaking about is an absolute technique that's used.
Mhm. Okay.
Thank you.